We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. 11 fishermen survived for 3 days clinging to their capsized boat after encountering bad weather near the remote Selayar Islands, and they've been successfully rescued. President Marcos Jr. downplayed criticism from his predecessor regarding his overseas trips. He highlighted his busy schedule fulfilling official duties abroad. President Putin addressed the nation, emphasizing the power of Russia's nuclear arsenal. He delivered a firm warning that these weapons would be deployed if the country's sovereignty is jeopardized. And former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra made his first public appearance since his early release from prison. Good evening and welcome to the broadcast. 11 Indonesian fishermen clung to their overturned boat for 3 days and were successfully rescued. The incident occurred over the weekend in the waters of the remote Selayar Islands during bad weather. Sadly, 2 crew members were found deceased on separate islands. Search efforts are now underway for at least 22 missing individuals. Local fishermen played a crucial role in spotting the survivors and alerting authorities. The vessel departed North Jakarta and was heading towards Lombok Island. The cause of the capsizing is still under investigation. Authorities typically face challenges due to discrepancies in passenger manifests and harsh weather conditions. Marine accidents are unfortunately common in Indonesia due to lax safety standards. A major rescue operation at an Australian gold mine ended tragically. 1 worker was found dead after being trapped in a cave-in. 29 other miners were rescued safely following the collapse at the Ballarat gold mine in Victoria.
2 workers that were air-legging, which is a manual style of mining. It's our understanding that they were working under unsupported ground, and that ground gave way, trapping both miners and killing 1.
Emergency crews worked tirelessly overnight to reach the trapped worker, who was 3 kilometers deep inside the mine. This incident raises serious safety concerns. Union officials point to a previous collapse in 2007 and question the current safety measures.
This form of air-legging shouldn't be used to do this type of work. This form of air-legging should be used, if it's ever used at all, to investigate the ground. The information that we're getting back was this was a quick, cheap and easy way to chase gold.
An investigation is underway by workplace safety authorities focusing on preventing future tragedies. The Australian Workers' Union is pushing for a probe under industrial manslaughter legislation.
This is absolutely devastating news. It's devastating because yet we've lost another worker, and no worker should be injured or die at work. But it's even more devastating because this should have been avoided. They should not have been doing that task in that mine. We are going to be pushing very hard to make sure that the industrial manslaughter laws are used.
The 21-year-old worker injured in the collapse remains in serious condition. In other news tonight, President Marcos Jr. has embarked on the second leg of his Central Europe tour, touching down in the Czech Republic after a successful trip in Germany. Marcos, accompanied by First Lady Luisa Araneta Marcos, and the Philippine delegation landed at Václav Havel International Airport in Prague at 5:43 p.m. Wednesday local time. That's around 12:43 a.m. Thursday in Manila, as confirmed by the Presidential Communications Office. During his visit to Prague, the president is scheduled to meet with Czech Republic President Petr Pavel along along with Prime Minister Peter Fiala and parliamentary leaders Milos Vystrčil and Markata Perakova-Anabova. This visit aims to strengthen bilateral ties and commemorate the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and the Czech Republic, established on October 5, 1973. A highlight of the visit is the expected signing of a joint communique establishing labor consultation mechanisms to enhance the protection of Filipino workers' rights and welfare during migration. President Marcos Jr. brushed off criticism from former President Rodrigo Duterte regarding his foreign trips, emphasizing his tight schedule packed with official duties overseas.
Ito yung schedule ko. Saan yung pasyal? This is my schedule for today. Where's the paseo? Wala. Yung kasama nyo kami. We don't make pasyal.
Currently on a tour of Central Europe, the president highlighted his agenda filled with meetings with foreign counterparts and business leaders when asked about accusations of leisurely travel. He emphasized that even familiar places aren't visited for recreation, as the purpose of the trip is strictly official.
Even in the places that I know or I've spent a lot of time with, hindi ko napupuntahan yung mga dati kong pinupuntahan because we're here to do this.
Duterte's recent remarks questioning Marcos's foreign travels came during a rally for Pastor Apollo Quiboloy, where he also criticized Marcos's support for charter change and alleged motives for term extension. Responding to Duterte's inconsistent stance on charter change, Marcos expressed confusion, noting Duterte's recent support for amending economic restrictions in the Constitution.
Nako-confuse kasi ako sa PRRD, papalit-palit eh. So I'll have to examine it further, read it kasi very quick ko lang narinig ang balita, kanyang mga remarks. So we'll tignan ko muna kung ano ba talaga yung sinabi niya para maintindihan ko dahil hindi ko talaga naintindihan kasi parang naiiba bawat salita niya iba eh. So we'll try to make sense of it.
Despite Duterte's comments, President Marcos maintained he has no personal issues with his predecessor, asserting his ability to separate personal matters from professional duties.
Personal ko namang kilala si PRRD eh. So yeah, like I've told you many times before, hindi ako na member personal. Para sa akin, hindi naman madali, pero nahihiwalay ko yung trabaho at saka yung personal. So I don't see a problem there.
He even extended birthday wishes to the former President Duterte, who turned 78 later this month. In a bilateral meeting with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Berlin, President Marcos Jr. asserted that the International Criminal Court, or ICC, overstepping into the Philippines' legal affairs constitutes a mistake. The president emphasized that the Philippines possesses a robust judicial system, rendering ICC intervention unnecessary.
I explained to him our concerns over jurisdiction that we have explained many times over. Our concerns with the jurisdiction of the ICC in the Philippines and why it is why we are not recognizing that jurisdiction and the reason behind that. So I think we just wanted to be informed. But I went further. Beyond just explaining the position of the Philippines vis-a-vis the ICC.
He noted the abundance of legal professionals in the country and reiterated the nation's capability to handle its internal legal matters. President Marcos stressed that the intrusion of the ICC into the Philippines' judicial affairs poses a challenge for his administration. He emphasized the unacceptability of an international court, assuming control over a nation with a functioning legal system and effective law enforcement mechanisms. In a recent interview with state media, Russian President Vladimir Putin emphasized the strength of Moscow's nuclear arsenal and issued a stern warning. Russia stands ready to deploy these weapons if its sovereignty is ever threatened.
Что мы готовы применять оружие, в том числе любое оружие, в том числе и такое, о котором вы сказали, если речь идет о существовании российского государства, о нанесении ущерба нашему суверенитету и независимости. Но с военно-технической точки зрения мы, конечно, готовы.
Putin's remarks come amidst escalating tensions, particularly in Ukraine, where Russia has been flexing its military might for the past 2 years. President Putin asserted that Russia's nuclear triad, comprising weapons launched from land, sea, and air, is more advanced than any other in the world, rivaled only by the United States.
Они у нас постоянно находятся в состоянии боевой готовности. Это первое. А второе, и это тоже вообще признанная вещь, наша триада, ядерная триада, она является более современной, чем любая другая триада. А таких триад только вот у нас, да, американцев, на самом деле. И мы здесь продвинулись гораздо больше.
President Putin's rhetoric coincides with Ukraine's efforts to garner support from its allies. However, the Russian leader dismissed the impact of foreign military intervention, asserting that it wouldn't alter the course of the conflict.
Но если речь пойдет о официальных воинских контингентах иностранных государств, то уверен, это не изменит ситуации на поле боя. Это самое важное. Так же, как ничего не меняет поставка вооружений.
In light of recent events, including attacks on Russian energy infrastructure by Ukrainian forces, President Putin's statements underscore the gravity of the situation and the potential consequences of further escalation. In other news tonight, former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra made his first public appearance since his early release from jail, visiting a Bangkok temple today. Thaksin, who was jailed for graft and abuse of power, wore a neck brace and then headed on a trip to Chiang Mai later in the day, accompanied by his daughter and son-in-law. Thaksin's sentence was reduced to 1 year by the king due to his age and health, sparking speculation about political deals. He returned to Thailand after 15 years of exile, just as his party took power in a coalition government. While in Chiang Mai, Thaksin may meet with Prime Minister Thaksin, who expressed willingness to listen to him. However, the Pheu Thai party urged its MPs not to visit Thaksin during his trip, saying they should be in Bangkok for Thursday's parliament session. Thaksin remains a polarizing figure in Thai politics, admired by rural Thais, but opposed by the establishment. His return adds to the ongoing power struggle in the country. In Capitol Hill news, a significant bill has successfully passed through the House with resounding support. The bill, requiring 2/3 majority for passage, achieved just that.
On this vote, the yeas are 352, the nays are 65. One present, 2/3 being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without the objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Now, attention turns to the Senate, where it's expected to face tougher scrutiny. If signed into law, the TikTok bill, would compel ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, to divest its ownership within 6 months or risk the app being banned. The legislation stems from national security concerns, particularly fears that the Chinese government could access Americans' personal data through TikTok and potentially influence their viewpoints.
The bill adopted by the U.S. House of Representatives puts the U.S. on the opposite side of the principles of fair competition and international trade rules. If the so-called national security can be cited at will to bring down other countries' competitive companies, there would be no fairness or justice to speak of. It's sheer robust logic to try every means to snatch from others all things that are good. How the U.S. has handled the TikTok incident enables the world to see clearly whether the U.S. so-called rules and order serves the whole world or the U.S. itself.
Now, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson expressed Congress' bipartisan stance against potential espionage by stating, today's bipartisan vote demonstrates Congress' opposition to Communist China's attempts to spy on and manipulate Americans and signals our resolve to deter our enemies. However, the bill wasn't without opposition. A mix of Democrats and Republicans, 50 and 15 respectively, voted against it. Meanwhile, TikTok has fiercely opposed the bill, even bringing influencers to Washington to lobby against it.
I make book content on TikTok. I talk about books, I recommend books, I encourage people to read, and it is my full-time job. It means the world to me, the platform that I have, the income that I can create to support myself and my family.
So I create disability advocacy content. I have a social media series called the Anti-Ableism series, focused on how we can be better allies to disabled people. It's got over 5 million views. I come into this space, one of my arms was paralyzed in a car accident as a kid. You know, I've been able to find so many other disabled creators on the platform. We've been able to find each other, not be so disempowered in our experience. And also not, for a long time, we wish the media would have covered our stories. And with a platform like TikTok, we can reclaim our narrative and say, hey, we're not heroes, we're not tragic, we're just here and we want to let you into our lives.
I use TikTok just to push positivity for plus-size women and plus-size little girls.
We will not stop fighting and advocating for you. We will continue to do all we can, including exercising our legal rights, to protect this amazing platform that we have built with you. We believe we can overcome this together. I encourage you to keep sharing your stories. Share them with your friends. Share them with your family. Share them with your senators. Protect your constitutional rights. Make your voices heard.
Now in Sherman Oaks, California, a landslide damaged 4 homes early Wednesday morning. Thankfully, no injuries were reported, according to Los Angeles Fire Department. Heavy rains and storm damage in the area are believed to be responsible for the landslide, with saturated land possibly taking up to a month to give way. Downtown Los Angeles saw over 12 inches of rain in February, making it the 4th wettest on record. Firefighters found a hillside had slid towards homes, causing significant damage to one under construction. Evacuations were conducted, and one building has been deemed unsafe by the Department of Building and Safety. At daybreak, firefighters will use drones with cameras and infrared technology to aid investigators still on the scene. A 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck Papua New Guinea near Kimbe in the West New Britain region. While the quake occurred at a shallow depth, there are no immediate reports of injuries or damage. Located on the seismically active Ring of Fire, Papua New Guinea frequently experiences earthquakes. Though uncommon in sparsely populated areas, these events can trigger dangerous landslides. Last year, a 7.0 quake caused fatalities and structural damage. Finally, in our news, the UN has released a new report on the Human Development Index, or HDI. While there's some positive news, the report also reveals a concerning trend.
Well, the new Human Development Index and Human Development Report indeed brings 2 kinds of news. One is good news, because after 2 years of actually reversing in terms of global human development with the pandemic and all its consequences, we have seen a rebound. So in aggregate, taking all the countries of the world together, the new Human Development Index report brings good news. The measures for recovery, the social safety nets, the investments, the stimulus packages in those countries that could afford them have worked.
This means the overall HDI score has reached a record high in 2023.
What we did not anticipate, and what is very concerning, is that the index also, when you disaggregate it country by country, is showing a very worrying new development. After 20 years of countries converging in terms of income, life expectancy, education, those are key criteria of the Human Development Index, we suddenly see a number of countries being left behind. They are not recovering. They have not even recovered to the level of 2019 before the pandemic hit. They are trapped.
This widening gap is due to several factors.
Well, if you were to look on a trajectory of where we would have been had we not had the pandemic, had we not had the financial crisis, the wars that are now afflicting us and also affecting many countries heavily, we would have been on a higher trajectory.
Countries facing conflict or natural disasters are particularly affected.
Let me put it this way. There are quite a number of countries who even now in the year 2023 have not recovered to the level of 2019 before the pandemic. So they are, in a sense, in a situation where their recovery is either very slow or not happening at all. Particularly countries in conflict with major natural disasters have experienced multiple setbacks. Other countries are beginning to grow, are beginning to recover, but they are highly constrained by their inability to invest in development. And therefore, they are trapped, so to speak, on a very low recovery pathway.
Can you give us some?
This lack of progress creates instability not just within these countries, but globally.
We need to leverage those interdependencies rather than to fight them. And this is why not only are we seeing within countries a tendency of falling apart, so to speak, politically, but also globally we are drifting apart. And this is very dangerous because at a moment in time where we need to work together as countries, despite differences, geopolitical, geoeconomic, we're actually undermining the very fabric of our international capacity to cooperate. We are turning our partners that we need into enemies. We are spending inordinate amounts on defense budgets while defunding and essentially not financing the greatest drivers of risk in the 21st century: inequality, climate change, cybercrime, the next pandemic.
Now the report warns of the dangers of this growing gap.
What I think many did not see, and certainly we did not anticipate, the significant divergence that we now see coming out so clearly, so quickly. And in a sense, that awareness is lacking in the world right now because it does not appreciate how profoundly risk-driven this is to our global security. We are sitting on top of a world that is wealthier than ever in human history, at least in financial terms. Our wealth in the world today is somewhere close to 500 trillion US dollars. And yet we have more hungry, more poor people than we did 10 years ago. We have wars happening increasingly across the world with, tens of millions of refugees. This is not a world that is becoming safer. It's actually a world that is becoming riskier and is turning on itself.
The UN report highlights a positive global trend in HDI, but also a widening gap between developed and developing countries. This lack of progress, coupled with insufficient international cooperation, creates a dangerous situation that demands immediate attention. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.